Friends, I'm very happy that I was given this opportunity to say a few words in Persian. I wouldn't have done it, but since it started, I would like to say just a phrase. And that's what I want to say, and it explains for itself. We say, این همه آوازها از شه بود. That means all these victories, all these triumphs for the cause, that according to the beloved Shoghi Effendi, it has amazed the men and women believers of the faith, had no parallel in the three apostolic periods of the cause, is indeed the choice fruit of the labors of our beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi. I'm very happy that one of the members of the Universal House of Justice, well, we shall hear his message. Mr. Hoffman will be there in the Holy Land. He confirmed this, and he said, everything we have now is from Shoghi Effendi. And of course, the Universal House of Justice, that infallible body, is following the steps of the beloved God. Friends, I am so inadequate to speak about the beloved Shoghi Effendi. I was asked to speak, and I was called to speak about my pilgrimage. And since I brought with me many documents, original, which I never departed when I left on trips. But this time, out of my great love for all of you and my submission to the beloved Shoghi Effendi, I brought them with me. But unfortunately, it didn't reach for the time. So I don't have it here. Maybe I'll share them tomorrow when I speak again, because I heard our suitcases have been found. Friends, perhaps I start by this. Well, I'm very happy that we have different approaches about the station of the beloved Shoghi Effendi. We know how modest he was, as Abdul Baha was. So many tablets revealed in honor of Abdul Baha that after the passing of Baha'u'llah, when they quoted, such as all the names revolved around him, or Baha'u'llah praised that, oh God, bring light to my eyes when the Master was in Beirut, and so many things, the Suratul Qurs and others. Abdul Baha wrote back and said, am I not the interpreter of the writings of Baha'u'llah? Yes, you are. Then he said, the interpretation of all these titles, such as, O apple of my eyes, which cannot be any higher than that, Abdul Baha said, I am the interpreter, and the meaning of all is the servant of Baha'u'llah, no more. The beloved Shoghi Effendi followed the same example, and he gave every credit to Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha. I had the great bounty to be in his presence 7 times. Friends, I tell you, I never heard him to say I. Never. He spoke of the time of Baha'u'llah, of the time of Abdul Baha, of the Bab. And then when it came for him to speak about his ministry and his time, he said, after the passing of Abdul Baha, the friends did this, did that. And I was there when the beloved Shoghi Effendi was announcing the 10-year crusade. He said, after the passing of Abdul Baha, the Baha'is took the message to 126 countries. And then the Guardian paused and he said, they are not yet satisfied. They are not yet happy. They intend to take to 100 more countries and announce the world crusade. I was in tears. I said, my beloved, everything happened in your time. He said, these were all the prophecies of Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha fulfilled. And then I remember exactly, I was walking with him to near the shrine of the Bab. And then he quoted from Abdul Baha, آنچه کند او کند ما چه توانیم کرد. Whatever is done by Baha'u'llah. What can we do? And that was a great lesson to the Baha'is until the next manifestation of Baha'u'llah, servitude. He signed the servant of his threshold, the threshold of Abdul Baha. He signed the servant of the threshold of the Bab. There's another story, in a rug, in a carpet that he offered to the very room of the Bab's declaration, and he ordered to be woven the servant of his threshold, Shobi. That was a great lesson. I enjoyed very much the different approaches, and I enjoyed the talk. I just want to add one word to it, that is right. After Abdul Baha, we go to formative age and the universal house of justice, the world order of Baha'u'llah. But have we ever thought who built and created the world order of Baha'u'llah? I read this from, all my notes are in the suitcases which are now found, thanks to Baha'u'llah. The beloved Shobi Effendi, in the dispensation of Baha'u'llah, it tells us, it should be borne in mind that the institution of the guardianship has been anticipated by Abdul Baha. In an allusion he made in a tablet addressed long before his own ascension to 3 of his friends in Persia. We know even the names of these friends. To their question as to whether there would be any person to whom all the Baha'is would be called upon to turn to the person after Abdul Baha. And in the tablet, in the testament of Abdul Baha speaks of the light which comes after me, in reference to the guardian, and so many quotations. To whom all the Baha'is would be called upon to turn after his ascension, he made the following reply. As to the station ye have asked me, know verily that this is a well-guarded secret. It is even as a gem concealed within its shell. That it will be revealed is predestined. The time will come when its light will appear. Don't we see now? When its evidences will be made manifest and its secrets unravel. About the beloved Shobi Effendi. But as I told you, in his great modesty, he gave every credit to the central figures of the faith and to the Baha'is. Even he did not rank himself with the Baha'is. The Baha'is are going to announce the 10-year crusade. The Baha'is are intending to do this and that and all the other things. Well, I don't refer to to the scriptures that the name, as here, Abdul Baha confirmed. What did he say? He said, this is well-guarded secret from the time immemorial. It is even as a gem concealed within its shell. The prophets of God in the Old Testament, in the Quran, in many quotations, the name of the beloved Shawqi Effendi is so praised. Even the duration of his kingdom, it's written how long he would live in this world. How long Abdul Baha, the name of the guardian, was there in all these scriptures. If you are interested, I'll give you references to all these things. Well, you know, you're all familiar when this Miss Drayton of New York wrote to Abdul Baha that we know the prophecies of Isaiah that during the time of the branch, wolf and lamb will lie together. And then it says, and a little child will lead them. And she said, I understand this. It has happened during the ministry of Abdul Baha. The beasts live together. But as far as to the little child is concerned, she was asking whether this little child was born. Abdul Baha wrote back and said, yes. He said, yes, this little child is born and exists. You have that, and perhaps I don't need to read it to you now. Abdul Baha said, I give you the reference, in which Abdul Baha said that he'll show this little child, which will show the greatest power of God. And he says his luminous face will illumine the whole world. Abdul Baha says, do not forget this as far as you live in this world, because for this little child there will be phenomena and effects and miracles, all for centuries and eras. These are, in the Quran there is a chapter that Abdul Baha quotes, that chapter in his will and testament, in reference to the beloved Shawqi Effendi, the twin surging seas that starts with the salutation of Abdul Baha addressed to for predicting the guardianship. Well, now I refrain reference to these. I'd like to speak today. Yes, I found this. Verily that infant is born and exists, and there will appear from his cause a wonder which thou wilt hear in future. Thou shalt see him with the most perfect form, most great gift. Friends, who am I to speak about the beloved Shawqi? I'm so inadequate, a humble dust. Abdul Baha said it. Let's see how Abdul Baha praises him. Thou shalt see him with the most perfect form, most great gift, most complete perfection, most great power, and strongest might. His face glisteneth, a glistening, whereby the horizons are illumined. Unto all the world, the face of the garden glisten now, in all the Pacific, in all these islands, in all these houses of worship, all over the world, which makes everybody astounded. Not the Baha'is, those, the enemies of the cause, those people who are now killing the Baha'is, they're astounded. Where are these places? All as a choice fruit of pioneering that the beloved Shawqi Effendi announced. These pioneering, these people, these martyrs, that everyone credits the victory of the faith to them, They gave their lives for the love of the beloved Shobi Effendi. They were raised by him. They were not risen in the time of Abdul Baha, but the power of the words and encouragement and all the plans of the guardian moved them to go, and now moving them to give their lives for him. Well, of course, all these things again goes to Baha'u'llah. Therefore, forget not this account as long as thou art living, for as much as there are signs for it in the passing centuries and ages. Friends, it is too soon to appreciate the beloved Shobi Effendi, the beloved God. How much he sacrificed. I don't know how to tell you how he worked. We were there in the Holy Land, in the pilgrim house, which looks from the hill, and we enjoyed very much to be there, and at night face the room of the beloved Shobi Effendi down the hill. And we could see the light there in his room. It was too far, we couldn't see him, but we watched. And then I said, I watched until midnight. The light was still on. And I said, oh God, how much the guardian works. Where does he start? When does he start? And when does he finish? The following day, being in the presence of the guardian, I didn't mention it to him, but through Baha'u'llah, he knew everything. Without mentioning to him, when I walked with him, he turned to me and he said, do you know what time I start work? Yes, my witness, my wife is here. And he said, I start work at 4 o'clock. Every day. And I finish it until midnight, after midnight. This was the way the beloved Shobi Effendi worked. Friends, I want to tell you about some of the assignments that I had from him. And these assignments, I tell you a good note, some of these, which I just made a note here. Yes, I was my first pilgrimage was on 1925, and it followed until 1937, 38, 39, and I was so eager. I felt a burning love for him. I wished I could be in his presence many times. And he was so kind to me. He said to me, I give you a permanent, what you call, visa. Anytime you can come, you're welcome. So it gave me that courage and that great happiness anytime I could go. And I almost went every year until the beloved Shobi Effendi in 1939, when he dispensed with me, he said, I'll call you. And I knew that was the end. And then in 1952. And I had, in 1937, well, I don't know whether I speak about if I want to speak about everything comes to my mind, I need days and days and days. I was there in 1925, the beloved Shobi Effendi did not come that day to the meeting of the friends. Every Sunday there was a meeting, a big gathering. Just imagine a big gathering with the beloved Shobi Effendi be there and speak to you. He had a guest, an honorable guest. And I was, as a young man, don't ask me tell you about the beloved hand of the cause, Mr. Varga, without his permission, because it reveals his age. The late Varga, his father, that the beloved Shoghi Effendi said, Waliullah Khan Varga, he said, in the company of all the hands, he was distinguished. Amongst all the 27 and then those who came later, Mr. Varga was distinguished. Mumtaz Buddha, he was chosen. And you know, the grandfather was the greatest, one of the prominent martyrs who gave his life, and that's one of his sons for Baha'u'llah. And now Mr. Varga, his father was in the presence of Abdul Baha as entourage with Abdul Baha in the West, in America. The uncle sent a photograph of Mr. Varga, who is now here with us, 4 months old, on his lap, sent to the father that Baha'u'llah has given us this child that you see him here. Now you guess how old he is. And then everybody who received his mail, Abdul Baha said, what was the news? And Mr. Varga bowed and said he received a letter and they have sent this photograph sitting on the lap of his uncle. Abdul Baha said, let me see. And when it was offered to Abdul Baha, he kissed it. And he should tell us, I may be wrong. On his right hand, on one of the hands, Abdul Baha wrote hand. And on the other, he wrote confirmed, Yad Mu'ayyad. And on the brow, or on the Ya Baha'ul Abha, Allahu Abha. This remained in the family. Nobody knew the significance for so many years. Until the beloved Shoghi Effendi, you tell me about his innate knowledge, until the beloved Shoghi Effendi appointed him as a hand of the cause of God. And when it was reported to him, out of his great modesty, he said, apparently I didn't know that. But he knows. They knew everything. They speak to us according to our capacity and our shortcoming. Because else we cannot withstand, we cannot be in their presence. If the guardian would say to those close to him, if he showed his power, none of them could live with him. So that this is one of the wisdoms. In 1937, well, I was telling you, I was in the pilgrim house, and I went to serve the pilgrims with chai, giving the tea. Then I faced the room of the guardian from the hill, and something passed in my heart. I said, oh, Baha'u'llah, I wish I'd be here during the wedding of the beloved Shoghi Effendi. 1925, I didn't know what was going on. And I had a dream that the wedding would take when the guardian is 40 years. Then, when I came, in one of my trips, and after the guardian was not there, I went to the shrine of Abdul Baha and prayed hard. And there, from that shrine, I wrote a letter to the guardian. I said I was so sinful, full of shortcoming, that I came as far as here, but I was deprived. The beloved Shoghi Effendi wrote back, and he said, soon you'll cherish your desire. He said, soon you will come and you'll accomplish the heart of your heart, the desire of your heart. I didn't know anything until we reached Baghdad, and speaking to some of the friends who lost one of the family, they said, don't speak about these things. This is the day of joy. This is the beloved guardian's wedding with Ruya Khanum, the daughter of Maxwell's. And then I rushed because that time the Shah was so, the old Shah, the father of the one who was dethroned. They were not in favor of the faith, and there was no relation between Persia and America because something happened, which is a different story. And then, after the cable of the Guardian came, now the unity of the East and West has been accomplished. Just imagine, at the time that the Shah cut his relation with the West, the beloved Shoghi Effendi sends this cable. So we knew that it wouldn't reach Tehran. From Baghdad, I sent a cable to Tehran, and I gave the glad tidings very briefly. Glad tidings, Guardian's wedding, Maxwell's daughter, and my signature. And when I reached there, and it was reported to the Guardian, the beloved Guardian asked me to write down what I sent, which I did, and he asked me to send a cable and write to the Baha'is of Iran. But he, just a year before, less than a year, he said, your heart's desire will be accomplished, so that the news was given to the Baha'is of Iran. Friends, the beloved Shoghi Effendi gave me many assignments. One of the assignments that I had was to be as errand for the Guardian, a peon, to announce his cables or to deliver to the National Assembly, to the individuals, to different countries. And that continued for over 22, 23 years, all the time. And that was the most joyful times of my life. When I went home and I asked, was there any cable? Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sometimes 5 cables a day. And I simply acknowledged my cable. I made ablution, I prayed and opened these cables and sent and delivered to whoever he was addressed to. This was one of the assignments that I had, and until the time that he passed on, the beloved Shoghi Effendi passed on. He sent me in 1937, well, amongst these cables, I received a cable. I haven't brought that with me, but I have others. Maybe I bring tomorrow here. Even if you can't see it, I put it here. It's a blessing, in remembrance of the beloved Shoghi Effendi. There was one of the pioneers in Afghanistan, in Kabul, Azari, his name, and he had a great problem. He didn't know what to do, and he wrote a letter expressing his great desire to give his life for the Guardian and asked for early relief. I was a member of the National Assembly. The National asked me to present to the beloved Shoghi Effendi that Azari is asking for his prayers and for early relief. In compliance with the instructions of the National Assembly at that time, I wrote the cable. I have still a very close friend, closer than brother to me, Salim Nunu. Many of the friends know. He came to my office and I said, Mr. Nunu, would you take this cable to the telegraph office for communication? I thought that would reach earlier than if I went after my office hours. He took it there and gave it to the telegraph office. Now the story doesn't end here. I came home after my office hours for lunch. As usual, I asked my wife, was there any message from the Guardian? Yes, here you are. Ya Baha'u'llah. I opened that. I prayed and opened. The beloved Yogi Effendi in that cable says, assure Azari in Kabul of my prayers. I was so astonished. How could it be in 2 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours? The cable we sent, and the answer came so quick. I left my lunch. I went to Mr. Nunu. I said, let's go to the telegraph office to see what happened. And when we went there, they said the cable was on the table, not yet communicated, not yet sent. These are the things all documented. I have, thanks to Baha'u'llah, the original of these cables with me. I was instructed by the beloved Shoghi Effendi to visit the friends in Persia. So we had a wonderful time to go every weekend to drive from Tehran to different parts of the country. And I tell you, we didn't know, we simply could sit behind the wheel. If there was a horn or some connection, we didn't know anything. And it happened behind the door, behind the wall of the Shah, who was such a dictator. The horn started to blow, and we left the car and ran away. We didn't know how to disconnect it. And we covered all these places. The beloved Shoghi Effendi wrote and said, give the glad tidings to the friends in Iran and visit them on my behalf. When I finished that, again in the following year, he sent another message through Mr. Nunu, who accompanied us sometimes, and he said, let him start over again. So we had that great bounty, and nothing is more important, and according to Baha'u'llah, more sweet than to be with his friends. The communication, the company of the friends is next to the company of God. And we covered again all Persia for the second time. Until 1939, when the twin monuments of the mother and brother of Abdul Baha were transferred to Carmel. The beloved Shoghi Effendi gave me the original tablet to take it to Persia, and I had the bounty to be there when the Guardian dedicated, when it started, when that night all the lights were ignited, and then the beloved Shoghi Effendi spoke of the station of the mother and brother of Abdul Baha, and said this was the fulfillment of the prophecies of Isaiah in 54th chapter. Nobody knew. He said the whole chapter is addressed to the mother of Abdul Baha. Enlarge thy tent and enlarge thy tent, that God says, oh, here you are. Enlarge the place of thy tent, and let them stretch forth the curtains of thine habitations. Spare not, lengthen thy cords, and strengthen thy stakes. Well, I don't read the whole thing, although the beloved Shoghi Effendi said it from memory from the scriptures. Fear not, for thou shalt not be ashamed, the mother of Abdul Baha. Neither be thou confounded, for thou shalt not be put to shame. For thy Maker is thine husband, Baha'u'llah, thy husband. The beloved Shoghi Effendi said, for thousands of years they read this, nobody knew what it meant. And it couldn't be more explicit than thy Maker, Baha'u'llah, is thine husband. The Lord of hosts is his name. And then the beloved Chobi Effendi said, this was the beginning and prelude to the formation of Universal House of Justice. When he sent a message to the friends in all over the world that this was great glad tidings, we didn't know what it meant. I remember one of the members of National Assembly of Iran, when this was read, he's now in the Abha Kingdom, he turned to us, he said, this was not a glad tidings. Well, he couldn't hide. The transfer of these two monuments would be the great glad tidings. But that was the beloved Chobi Effendi had in his mind to establish the world order of Baha'u'llah, the Universal House of Justice, in around the monument of the greatest holy leaf, and these twin monuments. And then it started, and as you know, the ark and all these things, and the unfoldment of the world order of Baha'u'llah. Until now we have the seat of Universal House of Justice. We couldn't understand. He was the builder of all these things. And all the time he said, let the friends pray for that day that Baha'u'llah, in the tablet of Carmel, he said, ere long the ark of God will sail on thee. Many times, maybe every day, he said to the pilgrims, سوف تجري سفينة الله عليك. And he waved his hand. He said it means the ark of God, that its occupants are the members of Universal House of Justice, will sail on the Mount Carmel. He said it means the laws of God will pour from thee to the whole world. And he said, let them pray for this day. And this was his mission on behalf of Baha'u'llah, on behalf of the Bab, because the Bab said to, well is it with he who gazes upon the world or upon the order of Baha'u'llah. In the mother book of Bayan, he said it, he predicted. He couldn't see, the Bab could not see physically, but he heralded. And the Guardian said the station of the Bab, which is the manifestation of unity of God, he is a manifestation, forerunner of Baha'u'llah, and forerunner for the world order of Baha'u'llah because of this verse in the Bayan. Baha'u'llah himself, he revealed the tablet of Carmel, and that needs a talk about the tablet of Carmel. Well, I'm speaking that part of mine which pertains to me. The beloved Chobi Effendi bade me to memorize it, that tablet. And he gave me assignment to go to Persia and to make a trip to Yazd and Shiraz and chant it for the Afghans, the relatives of the Bab. Let them see what a great future and what a majesty for the Bab will come to pass. And I said, all right, and you might have heard me that as we the Persians do when we receive these things or any tablet, we just kiss it and put it on the shelf. I thought I had plenty of time when going back to Persia to memorize. And in the meantime, I was not busy there. And I blamed myself. I said, I wish the beloved Chobi Effendi would assign something for me to do it here. I'm just idle. I enjoyed myself. I had a good nap and everything, going to the Guardian. And finally, I said, today I'll tell him to ask him to tell me to do something. I could pick up the flower at least and put it on the petals on the shrine, on the threshold of the shrines. And to tell you the truth, I never opened my lips before him. Just silent as a dead man, 1,000 times, that he read my heart. Through the channel of Baha'u'llah, Abdul Baha read the hearts. I said, I made a pledge not to speak, not to tell him anything. I said, if there was anything that I should know, he would tell me. Why should I take his time? Until that day, one day I made my mind. I said to myself, today I'll ask the guardian. We were in a big gathering in Mount Carmel. The beloved Shoghi Effendi was sitting. He always sat 1 or 2 chairs further down from that window which faces the Mediterranean. And 3, 4 people, I think I was the 4th one or someone, he told me where to sit. And he was telling the whole audience of the wonders in this faith. And I was thinking and praying, oh Baha'u'llah, help me today to tell it, to give me an assignment. In the middle of my thought, the beloved Shoghi Effendi turned his face to me and he said, have you memorized the tablet of Carmel? And that moment I wanted the ground would open and follow. So that this was the beloved Shoghi Effendi. And then the beloved Shoghi Effendi sent me, I'm speaking of some of my assignments, to Egypt. In Egypt, and there was a man, an old man who lived 100 or 110 years, Hussein Ruhi. And this man was truly a wonderful, wonderful man. He received knighthood from British government. And he was historical. He was there. The beloved Shoghi Effendi bade him that he should go with me. And sent us to obtain a visa in Jerusalem. And then coming back, he said, you go to Egypt and tell the friends the glad tidings. And then the guardian turned to him and he said, and you translate for him in Arabic. None of us knew what was the glad tidings that I had to tell the friends. And I did not dare to ask the guardian. Until we were there in Egypt, the hall was packed with the friends, no room for anyone. And now I am in the presence of all these friends in Cairo. And I wanted to tell them the glad tidings. I didn't remember anything. Oh God, Ya Baha'u'llah, what to tell them? Something in my ears said, tell them about the sufferings of the Baha'is of Iran, which was not a glad tidings, apparently. So I started to tell them that I went to the prison and these prisoners were brought. The whole members of the assembly of Yazd, including 2 Afghans, the relatives of the Bab, and chains. This old man, Mullah Tahir Malmiri, a great historian, changed. He was maybe 85, 90 years old. His eyes were weak, and others. And there was a fence from the floor to the ceiling, another fence in a little more distance, 2 meters, another fence. And these prisoners were brought that we see them. And an officer standing by them, with them. And of course, you knew what was our emotion. I said to them that I came and the beloved has sent his bounties, blessings, greetings to you all. Oh, they started to dance hearing these things. But this Mullah Tahir could not hear, could not see me. He asked his friends, now he had these chains on his feet. He said, what does he say? And I said it, I came from high. This is a term that they understand, the Baha'is, as فوق آمده, and explain to them. Mullah Tahir cried and raised his hands. He said, these are all his blessings. Who are we to deserve such a bounty? Stories like this, it was in my mind to tell the friends in Egypt. And when we finished that meeting, I met them again, not with that crowd. Coming back to the Holy Land, I was so unhappy. I blamed myself. Why did not I ask the guardian the glad tidings that I should have accomplished my assignment? Now, in the middle of my perspection, the guardian said, don't worry. The great glad tidings were the story of the sufferings of the Baha'is of Iran that you have already said to the believers in Egypt. That was my assignment in Egypt. And then the guardian said, I'll send you, this was prelude to your traveling to the West. Then he quoted Baha'u'llah. So Baha'u'llah says in his Masnavi, the poem, ای جمال الله برون آو از نقاب تا برون آید ز مغرب آفتاب. That means, O beauty of God, Baha'u'llah addresses himself, unveil thyself so that the sun may shine from the west. The beloved Shawi Effendi said, it means, he was the interpreter of the writing. He said, it means the sun of the miracles and mysteries of the faith, the light, the sun of majesty, will reflect, will rise from the west, from America to the east. That's the meaning. And then he paused and he said to me, I'll send you to the west, to America, to witness with your own eyes the secret, the mystery, the light of the cause in those lands. I make it brief. With this wonderful man, Hussein Ruhi, walking with him, the beloved Shawi Effendi, he said to me, he said, in future, you'll be visiting all the places in the world. Our finger was on the geographic globe in the morning, studied all these things without knowing the purpose, until we stopped in Guatemala. We couldn't pronounce it. We helped each other. And that day, when we arrived, when we were in the presence of the guardian, he started. He said, thanks to Baha'u'llah that his cause has reached to all these places. In Iceland, I don't know what would he say now in the presence of Baha'u'llah, the Bab, and Abdul Wahab. Look what has happened. The cause has reached to every corner of the world, maybe to other planets it will go. Then he paused and he spoke about Europe, 10 gold countries. He spoke highly about America, and then about Central America, and then he paused and turned to us, said, also Guatemala. And this old man, Hussein Ruhi, he threw himself on the knees of the guardian and cried. The beloved Shawi Effendi turned to me and he said, you'll see all these places in future. Your traveling to Egypt was preliminary to these trips. And then he paused. He said, and at the dedication of the house of worship in Wilmette, you will be chanting. Can you imagine? I asked the members of the National Assembly, did any one of you know what time the dedication would take place? Then the beloved Shawi Effendi, then it was the time for my wife, my dear wife who is here, to be in the presence of the guardian. And the beloved Shawi Effendi said to her that in future you'll accompany your husband and we'll see all these places. And the story, that was 1939. 1952, He sat with us in the gardens of the shrine of the Bab and handed over to me many pages, maybe 16, 17 pages in an envelope, written in quick way with pencil on the top. Some of these pages contain the whole page, some one or two passages from the commentary of the Surah of Joseph, and bade me to chant. I didn't know the purpose. And when I chanted, I put every sheet underneath, and I thought that I could keep them. And I was very happy the way he interpreted. And I said, well, we go to the pilgrim house and we shall study over again and remember his explanations. He corrected me when it came to one point which I correctly chanted at the house of worship. Mr. Furitan wanted to correct me. I said, yes, I did it that way, but the guardian said that was wrong. And then and the moment I put in the envelope to put it in my pocket, the beloved Shoghi Effendi stretched his hand to take it back. And that broke my heart. I had no choice. I went to him and presented. And when I presented, just in my heart, I said, oh my beloved, that was not fair. And then, until we were there at the dedication of the house of worship, the night we were in the hotel, our mail was on the table, and when I opened, the National Assembly tells us that the beloved Shoghi Effendi, presenting the program of the dedication of the house of worship, he just added that Khadem is to chant from the commentary of the Surah of Joseph and sent me those things that I wish to have. And that makes my precious gift. Well, you tell me about my hour. I think my time is up. Thank you very much. I don't know what to tell you, and I never thought to tell you these things. I had some other notes, but you forget. You must forgive me. Thank you very, very much. Of the beloved of all hearts, Shoghi Effendi. In Persian poems, it has been said, جمعی به تو مشغول و تو غایب میانه. And this is the translation. How long will this torrent of tears flood from each lash in my longing to meet thee? Oh, the unique one, my beloved. Will the night of thy separation ever end? O thou, whose agony and tribulations have, as an arrow, pierced the hearts of thy lovers. Multitudes, this is the translation of that part. Multitudes are occupied in thy praise, whilst thou art hidden from them. Now we are all, as individuals in this multitude, are occupied with the praise of the beloved Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of this glorious manifestation, which according to Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha, such a dispensation, the revelation of Baha'u'llah comes to the world in every 500,000 years. The guardian of the cause, Shoghi Effendi. I remember the time in the presence of the beloved Shoghi Effendi when he spoke about the significance of the two And in fact, he sent a cable to the National Assembly of the Baha'is of British Isles that they have published in their literature. And he tells us about the twin, which is so significant in this cause. He told us verbally, he said, we have twin cities, holy cities, Akka and Haifa, twin houses, the house of Shiraz and the house of Baghdad, of Baha'u'llah, the house of the Bab. Twin manifestations, the manifestation of the Bab and that of Baha'u'llah. He kept on telling us everything is twin. Twin festivals, the birthday of the Bab and that of Baha'u'llah. Twin monuments of the brother and mother of Abdul Baha. And that day, the Guardian was so jubilant, he was so happy. So it gave me the courage to mention to him, we have two gardens, the garden of Ashraf and the garden of Rizwan. Then the beloved Guardian smiled and he said, you said it, but you forgot to say twin views, the view of the sea and the view of the mountain. And after explaining these things, he paused and he looked at me deeply. He said, in the cause of God, everything is twin. No wonder that he meant two interpreters, two manifestations and two interpreters. The Bab and Baha'u'llah as the manifestations of God, and two interpreters, Abdul Baha and the beloved Shobi. And of course, tonight that Baha'u'llah called him, and according to the scriptures, which before we came here, I shared with some of the friends, also I shared with some last night, it was known in the scriptures how long the beloved Shobi Effendi would live in this world. His ministry very explicitly mentioned that the first successorship after Baha'u'llah, whose name is Abbas, Abbas will become the leader of mankind. Yasir al-Abbas Imam al-Nas. And then he goes to say that the second successorship belongs to the person, to that wonderful figure whose name starts by Shobi. And then explanation. The first one would have his kingdom for 30 years. 29 solar years. In lunar calendar it makes 30. And the second one, the ministry of the beloved Shobi Effendi, 36 years. In lunar calendar it makes 37 or more. And it says explicitly that the combination of those makes 70 years. Well, it was 66, 67, but with the Arabs, when you reach to the half of a decade, it goes to the next. So, and many other passages. If that was known to them, how much more to the beloved Shobi Effendi? Of course, he knew what time he was passing. So that it removes from our minds that the beloved Shobi Effendi did not leave us suddenly. He just closed his eyes the moment Baha'u'llah called him, and it was known to him. And this is my firm conviction. Allah, he got rid of this mortal life just when he felt that he accomplished his ministry. And the greatest task for him was to start the world order of Baha'u'llah and the Universal House of Justice. Friends, the beloved Shawqi Effendi, I tell you, he would not have passed before he accomplished his assignment from God. Else he would not have passed. So, although we are heartbroken with the passing of the beloved Shawqi Effendi, and only time can remedy, but we have his guidance the same way with Abdul Wahab, Baha'u'llah, and the Bab. And the Universal House of Justice, that infallible body, they quote all the time from his writings, the Guardian's writing, from the central figures of the faith, so that he is with us, always in spirit. Friends, he is now in the Abha kingdom, and he is my witness. If I feel any minute that he is no longer with us, that would be the end of my life. We all feel his closeness to all of us, so that we have his guidance. I don't know really how to start. I'm so excited. I was in 1957, the beloved Shawqi Effendi gave me an assignment to come to America and to visit the friends here, also in Central America. And I think that was my assignment, to be at the convention in Panama for the National Spiritual Assembly. They had a regional National Assembly that was split to different, and now we have in all Central America and South America, I can't tell you from memory how many, 21, 27 National Spiritual Assemblies in the Western Hemisphere. That the beloved Shawqi Effendi, he was so happy when he mentioned that. There was something in his lips that I have repeatedly shared with the friends, so that many friends, they know it from memory. And that was his beautiful word. You can memorize. Bebinit. That means look and see. Behold the bounties of Baha'u'llah. Once in a while he said, Bebinit. What has happened in the world? He said, see, Bebinit for you, see the bounties of Baha'u'llah. In all Central and South America, in Latin Americas, during the lifetime of Abdul Wahab, there was only one pioneer, House Afar. She passed on. But she was there at the dedication of the House of Worship in Panama. He mentioned that. He said, in all these Latin America, there is only one pioneer. And then he said, Bebinit, behold what has happened. And now, I don't know what would he say in the Abha kingdom. Bebinit, what has Baha'u'llah done through the sacrifice of his beloved guardian and the efforts of the beloved friends in all parts of the world. Well, I remember in Switzerland, I shared this with Miss Little, who was a pioneer there, a wonderful lady. I think I should mention the name of some of the pioneers of the hands and so forth this day. And she memorized this. The moment she went to the presence of the beloved Shoghi Effendi, the moment she arrived with a gesture, he said to the beloved Shoghi Effendi, "Bebinid." The beloved guardian smiled and he said, "I know who told you." Friends, I was going back from America on this trip, this assignment that I had, and I thought that I finished my assignment. It took a long time until we were there with the family. Well, my wife is here, the children, and I tell you, when I look at the beautiful faces of the Toer family, that for going to America, we thought that many people, the friends, could go to all these conferences. But the beloved Shoghi Effendi advised that going on teaching trips had priority. So that I wrote to the friends in Iraq and other places who were preparing to go to these conferences, and of course they stopped going and they started teaching. That was during the Nowruz. And we didn't know this. We had packed our suitcases to go and we said to the friends goodbye and we were going. When this message reached from the beloved Shoghi Effendi that teaching for the friends had priority. So I mentioned to my wife and children that since this is the desire of the beloved Shoghi Effendi, we rather not go. We unpacked our suitcases. And then I had my assignment to go. The following day, a cable reached from the beloved Shoghi Effendi, in which he said, wife and children are permitted to accompany. Again we made our suitcases and went to this trip. Even he told us, he instructed me how long to stay in Beirut. For 2 weeks he gave. And then he said 2 weeks in Beirut, and just before he passed on, he gave me another assignment to go back to Beirut. Anyhow, we were in Switzerland on our way to Tehran. Everything was arranged. We had on the verge of going, a cable reached from the beloved Shoghi Effendi, in which he was so kind to tell me, now start to visit the friends in Scandinavian countries and Benelux countries. Then we went to different directions. The children and Javidov, they went to Tehran, and I went to Europe and Scandinavian countries. It was very close to the time, to the passing of the beloved Shoghi Effendi. And he was so kind to me. Had I not received that cable, I would have been deprived to be at his funeral in England. And he made my itinerary. Can you believe it? He gave me assignment to be at the dedication of the Hazire Baha'i Center in Luxembourg, which was just 1 day before his passing. So I couldn't change. Even if I liked to change it, I could not, because it had to end there. And then in the cable, I have all these cables. He puts a stop, S-T-O-P, separates, in which the guardian said, and visit Beirut, and how to say and whom to meet, and how to speak. Yes, in that cable, the beloved Shoghi Effendi says, speak strongly. Well, I had that assignment, which was fulfilled after the passing of the guardian. The itinerary was made by him. When I was in Europe, I was so tired. I looked miserable. The friends could not come to me. And I had a dream in Belgium that the greatest holy name fell down on the floor. And the funeral of the beloved Shawqi Effendi I had in my dream. I couldn't understand. I thought that perhaps, I said, Samandari, who is loved by everybody, is going to pass. But then I didn't sleep during the nights in the hotels. The neighboring rooms, they complained to the hotel manager, and they asked him to change my room. I couldn't sleep. I cried until we found what was the significance. The passing of the beloved Shawqi, which then, that I was so grateful to him that because of his direction, I could be there at the funeral, at his funeral. Friends, yesterday, the beloved hand of the cause, Mr. Waqa, told you about the tablet of centenary of the beloved Shawqi Effendi. I was explaining to the friends that the style of his writing is unique. Who in the whole world could write like him? If you bring all the poets, the writers in Persia who are so proud of their literature, I tell you, they cannot compose half a sentence that the Guardian wrote in Persia. In all his messages, the centenary tablet, just like God passes by. You know English, the English style in God passes by. One of the scholars of the faith, Ashraf Khavari, who is known to the Baha'is of the world, and the beloved Shawqi Effendi, I read somewhere, but I can't give you the reference. He called him the philosopher, the Eastern philosopher of the cause. He was very learned. He has written 2 books, thick books, just explaining every word of that tablet of the beloved Shawqi Effendi. References made. We had another Baha'i, Fazil Tehrani, who was very learned and descendant of Sheikh Abdul Hussein. This is the miracle of the faith. Sheikh Abdul Hussein, who was responsible for the exile of Baha'u'llah from Baghdad, the bitterest enemy of the faith, from his family, his grandson, became a wonderful Baha'i, Fazil Tehrani, and a prominent Baha'i teacher. And when he read this tablet of the Guardian and the style, he cried and he said, so far we knew the Guardian through the will and testament of Abdul Baha. But from now on, I know him because of his writing. Where did he learn his Persian and English and Arabic? He never been in Persia. I was telling the friends that in Baghdad, in Toer's family, who are now here, they had a beautiful mansion, very aristocratic. A great man, would-be prime minister of the country, came to see them, and we were all sitting. He had the whole meeting to him. He spoke half an hour or more, and then after he finished, he asked Janab Dawood Toer, the head of this family, to introduce everyone. And when Mr. Toer started to introduce each one, it reached to a Baha'i scholar, Haj Ahmad Hamdi. I think we should mention the name of these wonderful souls. He was secretary of the Muslim leagues in all Arabia. That kind of a scholar, his eloquence, his knowledge. And then, when it reached to introduce him, Mr. Toeb said, "This is Haj Ahmad Hamdi." And this man, this great person, turned to Mr. Toeb and said, "You have insulted me. Why didn't you say first that Haj Ahmad is here? He's the ocean of knowledge, and in his presence I should have kept silence. I should not have opened my lips." That great man, when the tablet, these writings of the Guardian were chanted or he heard, he just became so humble. Tears ran on his face, and he said, "Where did the Guardian learn this Arabic?" The man who was well known in all Arabia now became a Baha'i, and he was so impressed. That was in your home. We had amongst the non-Baha'is custodian of the mosque of Sepah Salar, which is the greatest mosque in Tehran. The mosque and school. The Shah of Persia is custodian. He was acting for the Shah. I don't mention his name just in order to avoid anything for the family or if he is alive. He attended the presence of the Guardian, and coming back to Persia, to Tehran, he sent a message to the National Assembly that he wanted to meet some of the Baha'is just to express his gratitude to the beloved Shoghi Effendi that he had the bounty to be in his presence. So he was invited. That great mullah, well known. And when he came and the National Assembly arranged for a meeting, he told us about the beloved Shoghi Effendi, and he said, "I don't know, where did he learn Persia? He never been in Persia." And he spoke about the gardens of the holy shrine of the Bab. He said, "If you employ 100 gardeners, they cannot make such a beautiful job that the beloved Shoghi Effendi has done only with 2 gardeners." This was his amazement. And after this he said, "I haven't heard any of the writings of the beloved Guardian. Have you any?" We had that centenary tablet. And when it was recited, it was chanted, he became so humble, this great mullah, the greatest. And then he said, "Oh God, my God, this is the style of Ali, the Imam Ali. I can't see any difference." And the words that he said, I put it down, and it was mentioned to the Guardian, reported to him. He said, "The owner, the one who wrote these passages, has ilm ladunni, has innate knowledge from God." That was his expression about the Guardian. Another one, a writer, newspaper man, in a meeting in the court of the Shah, the members were there, and some of the writers, some of the ministers in the cabinet. The man came and they asked him to speak about his trip. He said, "The thing that I can share with you is that I've been in the presence of the Guardian, Shoghi Effendi." And then he said, "Just imagine Sa'di, like Shakespeare to the British and English people." He said, "I just could see, and you can see that Sa'di was sitting there and speaking with that eloquence." That was his expression about the beloved Shoghi Effendi. And the dean of the University of Literature, in Persian literature, again I don't mention his name, he announced in the university that if there was one person in the whole world to write good Persian, it's Shoghi Effendi. through his messages and through that knowledge that this mullah said, the innate knowledge of the guardian, we have the next manifestation of Baha'u'llah. Friends, the beloved Shawqi Effendi, I mentioned yesterday that he started with the Ark of God, ARC, around the Ark, around the monument of the greatest holy leaf, and the monument gardens of the brother and mother of Abdul Baha. He prepared all the plans for the world order of Baha'u'llah. He started by the archives, and then he said, the Ark of God, ARK, that means Universal House of Justice, will be built around the ARC. The Ark of God will be built around the ARC. And he started the first one, the archives, and then now we have the seat of Universal House of Justice, and they are intending to have one for the teachers, the Institution of the Hands, the International Baha'i Teaching Center, and the rest of it. But he started with this, with the archives. And his beautiful way of expressing, he started by M. M in Arabic means the house or the place. He said, in future, they'll go first to the Mashriq al-Azkar. You see, it starts by M, the house of worship, at the head of Universal House, at the head of Carmel, which you can see the obelisk. They pray, first they go to Matla'ul Anwar, the dawning place of the lights, the shrine of the Bab. It starts by M. And then they go and pray in Mashriq al-Azkar, the house of worship. And then they come to Markaz Asar, the center archives, again with M, to study the writings. And after doing all these things, they go to Majma' Abrar, to the seat of Universal House of Justice. Oh, the beautiful way the Guardian spoke about these things. This is what is happening in future. And now we can see most of it. He placed all the relics in this archive. Amongst them, a ring from Quddus. Quddus, you remember in Tabarsi and the last letter of the living, that Abdul Baha'u'llah says the primal point is the Bab, the final point is Quddus. The ring of Quddus, a turquoise, mounted on a silver ring, which, as far as its value is concerned, is not very precious. But it's wrapped in a paper in which the father of the beloved Shawqi Effendi has written, on such and such a time when the Guardian was a small child, the Abdul Baha called me and said to me, this is the ring of Quddus, is very precious. You keep it and give to the apple of your eyes, Shawqi Effendi. That was soon the archives will be established. And all these things that now we have in the archive. Just imagine if the whole world, the Christians had just the cloth that Jesus Christ covered his head, what would they do? And now we have everything in original kept for us and for future. I think the beloved Shawqi Effendi, when he intended to appoint the hands of the cause, to my understanding, because he felt that he was going, and he wanted this institution that started by Baha'u'llah to take care of the integrity and unity of the cause of God. And just in order to do that, The beloved Shoghi Effendi, 5 years before he passed on in 1952, he nominated and appointed the hands of the cause. With this great responsibility, and called this institution as chief stewards of the embryonic world order of Baha'u'llah. Friends, just imagine embryonic that the Guardian mentioned. He could see, he created this embryonic, and then he left us so that he accomplished his task. He brought that body, infallible body, in embryonic form, and then he was assured that, and he left behind such wonderful, devoted Baha'is all over the world, with the institution of the hands to be as chief stewards, to take care and preserve the unity of the cause. And I tell you, these wonderful souls, many of them in the Abha kingdom now, they enjoy the presence of their beloved Shoghi Effendi in the presence of the Bab, Baha'u'llah and Abdul Wahab. I'm inadequate to speak about the beloved Shoghi Effendi. I'm also inadequate to speak about these wonderful souls, the hands, individual hands, who had such a great love for the beloved Shoghi Effendi, including those before them who were appointed by the beloved Shoghi Effendi posthumously. And the foremost amongst them is Martarut, that the beloved Shoghi Effendi calls her the apple of the eyes of the Baha'is of the world. He said to me, do you know, well, in not exactly this term, why she passed on in Honolulu? She said, because she was international Baha'i teacher, and that was the will of Baha'u'llah, that she should pass in Honolulu, which is half the way between East and West. So everything has significance, everything. And Dr. Esselman, that we know about his writing, his book, what he did in the world, and the rest of them. I think if I go through this, we need sessions after sessions to speak about each one of them. I mentioned the names and just a brief account of some of them. Dr. Esselman, Keith Ransom Taylor, that wonderful lady that the beloved Shoghi Effendi conferred upon her the rank of the hand of the cause, also as a martyr, American Baha'i martyr. You have two Western martyrs. The first one, Keith Ransom Taylor, who was also a hand, and Mae Maxwell, who passed on in Argentina. She had that rank too. And I was a close friend with Keith Ransom Taylor. While she was in Tehran, I used to escort her and to take her to the markets, to the bazaars. She impressed everybody. She impressed all the dignitaries in Perth. She came as ambassador on behalf of the National Assembly of America and Canada. At that time, Canada and America had one National Assembly. And she tried, and she could obtain to remove the ban of the Baha'i literature, but unfortunately the minister of the court was dismissed, and it did not work. But she told me many times, I remember all the time, well, her spirit, also others are with us. She said to me, darling, a time will come that you will remember me. And she said, at that time, you'll be astonished how Baha'u'llah has chosen an old woman weak and humble like me to come and serve him and the Baha'is of Persia. She was, the beloved Shoghi Effendi called her essence of eloquence. Keith Ransom Keller. Now she is in the Abha kingdom and prays for us. Abdul Jalil Bey Saad in Egypt, who translated Nabil's narrative in Arabic, such a style that a man in Persia who got Nobel Prize in Arabic, when he received a copy, he said, "This is a wonderful style in Arabic, I haven't seen like that." And he was the judge in Egypt. He was exiled from Egypt because he wrote many articles about the faith. I met him, this wonderful man. Said Mustafa Rumi, who started the faith in Burma, and many of the translations we have from him, it was done by him. A wonderful man. Louis Gregory, that wonderful, wonderful man that Abdul Baha said he was a crystal. He has written so much about Louis Gregory. And you study the details of his pilgrimage in Egypt, where he attained the presence of Abdul Baha, also in this country. These are our examples. I don't say the example, but examples of devotion and love. Roy Wilhelm, such a wonderful man. Roy Wilhelm is so known. Roy Wilhelm, who sent our beloved Baha'i brother Curtis Kelsey to the Holy Land to extend the wires, all the wires and pump, all these electrical facilities was done through him and through Roy Wilhelm. Sutherland Maxwell, the father of Amatul Baha Ruhi Khanum, that after his passing, the beloved Shoghi Effendi said his robe was put on the shoulder of his daughter, Amatul Baha Ruhi Khanum, Canadian. Emilia Collins, that wonderful man, that wonderful lady, that the beloved Shoghi Effendi gave her residence in the house of Abdul Baha. She had such a love for the garden. It's beyond my understanding. And the beloved Shoghi Effendi said, as far as she lives in this world, she must be in the house of the Master. But after she passed on, this is not the place for anyone to reside. Emilia Collins. Dorothy Baker, that wonderful lady. I'm very happy that now Dorothy Baker's daughter or granddaughter has written a book. Granddaughter. Beautiful. I studied. I enjoyed very much this wonderful, wonderful lady. That I met her all over the world. In India. The last night she was leaving, she and the pioneers came to the front. She called them 22. It's written there. She gathered them and came in front of them and said, "I don't have anything to offer to you but my life." She offered her life to these pioneers. And the beloved Shoghi Effendi in his messages, he says Mediterranean was blessed, the death of Mediterranean with the remains of Dorothy Baker. And the shore with the body of can anyone help me? Who was the first pioneer of the 10-year crusade, that wonderful lady. Who? Well, and this was, and I met her too in New York. And when I went to meet him, Ella, that's right, Ella. And then I went to see her, and she was almost on the bed of death. They said nobody can see her. Well, when I went, they said, all right, you come. And when I went, I took her hand, and I said, where are you going? The Spiritual Assembly of New York was preparing for her funeral. And she said, were you not there in the Intercontinental Conference, where it was said that the women, that the elderly people can take their bones and bury in these gold countries? I'm taking my bones. And she did. And the beloved Shoghi Effendi gave her such honor, mentioning her name and the sacrifice she made. And you know, this Dorothy Baker, that when I passed through Arabia, that wonderful, wonderful lady in Arabia who is now living, I don't think she doesn't mind if her name be mentioned. Mrs. Yatim, the wife of Sheikh Yatim, who is wealthiest man in all Arabia. And this lady embraced the faith. She is very learned. Her articles in English, in Arabic, she is I would say, the first lady in all Arabia. And when she lost her daughter, who was in the same plane of Dorothy Baker, and Gloria Faizi, Mrs. Faizi, went to express her sympathy. And when she saw that she was crying, she called her and said, there is life after death. Don't cry so much. And she said, I believe, because I had a dream that there was another lady in the plane told me, don't cry, your daughter, I'm taking care of your daughter. And then Gloria said, do you know the lady? No, a lady in that plane. Can you recognize her? Yes. And when the photograph of Dorothy Baker was brought, she cried and she said, this is the lady who's taking care of my daughter. Anytime I go to Arabia, and I should not conceal it, that any time I feel I need spirit, I go to Arabia. I take the plane without anyone knowing, going to Arabia. And what's it? Yes, she became Baha'i after her dream. And the family, the son and others, they wanted to kill her. And she used to come to Baha'i meetings with Abba on her face, nobody to recognize her. She is, the buildings, the luxury they have, it's just like the emperors of France, Louis, what they say about the furniture and everything they had, Sheikh Yatim. And then her husband intervened and said to the children, I'll take care of her, don't worry. And she goes to the Baha'i conferences. If someone encouraged her, she would have been here now. Yes, she would. She went to all these conferences. And the husband also is in favor of the faith, although he doesn't. And anytime we go there, she invites us. She knows everything about the faith. And the husband was so nice during the fasting month of Baha'i fasting month in such a fanatic country. She said, right before sunrise, her husband came and said, come on, this is the time of fasting. And it seems it coincided with a day that we should not fast. But the husband is taking care of her. She's a wonderful, wonderful lady. And last time when we were there, come here. Come on. No, come here. Come on. Oh. Why don't you say, Janab Agha, you announce it. This lady, of course, her husband is the wealthiest But she is so honest, she wouldn't spend from her husband. Mr. Varga, the hand of the offering Huququllah to the fund. These are the miracles of Baha'u'llah. And last time when we were there, she was so happy. She said that her husband has invited us to his palace. But he avoided. He just was kind, but never invited us. But this time, he invited us. And we went to his palace. And the moment I wanted to come, he rushed to take my coat, which in Eastern countries, you see, they don't do that. It's the greatest honor they give if they do to someone. And he said, no, I must take your coat. And he helped me. He asked photographer to take photographs of us. And these all were the credit due to the spirit, the wonderful spirit of Dorothy Baker, who is now taking care of the daughter of Yatim, Sheikh Yatim. And I have the name of Mother True, who is so known to all of us. Mother True, who was responsible, whose efforts, whose devotion, love created, and that was for this house of worship, the Mother Temple of the faith. She is called Mother True, and I should say she was mother of the Mother Temple of the Baha'i world, Mother Mashriq al-Askar. Horace Holly, that wonderful person, Ya Baha'u'llah, so eloquent, so well known, the one who wrote to the beloved Shawqi Afandi an administrative world order we are indebted to him with his writings to the beloved guardian, and the beloved Shawqi Afandi approved or made corrections, and now we have administrative world order. He had such a sense of humor, beautiful. I haven't seen in the whole world one to have that kind of what did I say? I forgot. Of the sense of humor. You must remind me. The sense of humor. He had a beautiful sense of humor, but he never smiled. He said it. And I had that experience that now through God's mercy, we have our suitcases last night. And I used to take my suitcases with me and a small bag with me for the things that I needed at once. And because of the problems and difficulties we had at the frontiers, I used to put my suitcases at the customs house and just took the necessary things that I needed, such as razor and other things, to that conference and coming back. But Horace Holly had to carry many suitcases. I approached him. I said, Horace, this is my habit. I put my suitcases here at the airport, and I take just a small bag. And he looked at me and said, and then why do you take it? He had such a sense of humor, Horace Holly. And when the beloved Shawqi Afandi in Indian conference, in Intercontinental Conference in New Delhi, he gave assignment that each hand where to go. He assigned some to go to Japan. I was given that assignment to Japan and Far East, to everyone. And when it was announced, he came to me and said, I don't know where I can hide myself that the guardian would not find me. And then he said, I bet you if I go ahead, the guardian would give me some jobs there to do. He was a wonderful man. That was Horace Holly. Mr. Varga, I mentioned the father of our beloved hand here, Mr. Varga, Waliullah Varga, who was one of entourage of Abdul Baha, and the beloved Shoghi Effendi said to me, he said, write to him, and he said, and appreciate his services. He, in the company of hands, he is outstanding, chosen. Mr. Varga. George Townsend, oh, that wonderful person. That wonderful person that the cause of God has not produced so far a man like him. That the beloved Shoghi Effendi says, the best writer we have in the cause. The best scholar we had in Persia is Abul Faza'il, and the best one in the West is George Townsend. To me, he had the greatest honor, the Guardian showered upon him, asking him to write preface for the God Passes By and for Hidden Words. Nobody has been given that task, because Abdul Baha said his writings and the writings of Baha'u'llah should not be compiled in one volume. Who are we to appreciate and write prefix? What did I say? Whatever you say. Preface. Who has that? But the beloved Shoghi Effendi chose him amongst all the Baha'is to do that job. I had the honor to be at his grave in England. And I tell you, when you go to his grave, there is a small chapel, and the sign, it is as if the greatest holy name. It's not that, but just exactly the way it's there on the top of that chapel. And the stone on his grave, well, it's just a phrase from the Bible. I saw the new heaven and the new earth. The new heaven and the new earth on his grave, because they didn't accept anything from writings, but this was perfect. Fred Schafflacher, again Canadian, that wonderful man. This great man, I met him in Chicago at the Intercontinental Conference, and I heard that there was a time that the house of worship, the building was stopped because of lack of money, and he was in the presence of the Guardian. In the presence of the beloved Shoghi Effendi, he offered $100,000 at that time that the building be continued. And that brought tears to the eyes of the beloved Shoghi Effendi. And we were sitting together, and when I mentioned to him, he just pressed my hand and changed the subject. He didn't want that to be mentioned. These are our heroes and heroines. These are the treasures of the cause in this revelation. Just imagine, Ya Baha'u'llah. Can any of the past religions show such devotion shown by any one of these wonderful souls? Abdul Baha coming to Canada to the Notre Dame in Montreal, he entered with some of the entourage with him, and with the pumps and all these things in that church, came back halfway. He didn't enter. And he said, look, all these pomps and majesties that are now offered to Jesus Christ is the fruit of 11 disciples of Christ. And then he said, and the chief disciple of Christ denied him 3 times. And then he turned to these entourages with him. He said, see, what will happen? Bebinit, behold, what will happen in future with these wonderful devoted souls in the cause that you can compare. Well, Abdul Baha, addressing the Baha'is of the West, he says, "O ye apostles of Baha'u'llah." Do you remember that passage? He addresses you, all American, Canadian Baha'is. "O ye apostles of Baha'u'llah, may my life be sacrificed for thee." Just imagine, apostles of Baha'u'llah, that now again I remember the hand of the cause, Tarazullah Samandari, that wonderful person who came to this country and he wanted to go and visit the Friends. The National Spiritual Assembly of the United States sent Evans Winston, that wonderful man, am I right? He was a minister, and he went to prepare the way for Mr. Samandari to go for the publicity. And somewhere in Boston, he prepared the way, and a man, a great priest who has God knows how many thousand followers, he came to him. Mr. Samandari was sitting and knelt before him and asked Mr. Samandari to bless him. Mr. Samandari just put his hand over the head of this man. And the moment the man was satisfied and sat down, then Mr. Samandari rose and went to him and knelt. And he said, "Now you must bless me." And then on his way, he went on all these tours until he reached in California, in Los Angeles. He was sick, he was in bed, he could not speak, so the physician said nobody should go to him. If anyone wants to see him, just see his son. A man from the press, that it was worldwide and it came in all papers, went there and he said, "No, I want to see the man whose eyes gazed upon the countenance of Baha'u'llah. Just, I want to sit beside him." And he sat and asked a question. Samandari with the fever, he just got up. Do you remember his gesture? And answered the question and went back again to bed. And then this man said to Mr. Samandari, he said, "I cannot praise you. The only thing I can say, you are like Peter." And he said, "With one difference, Peter met the Son, but I had the bounty to be in the presence of the Father." And that came in all papers. The moment I read, I took the telephone, I said, "Mr. Samandari, you said something that in future it must be written by gold and diamond." But he said he forgot to write the rest of it. I said, "Although that was my bounty, I do not deserve to unlace the boot of Peter." Well, you tell me any time my time is up. Is it finished? I look at your writing, then it seems that... Friends, well, in Persian, sometimes just one word and one poem, one sentence would do the purpose. And at this moment, I would say that. And with the Persians, they have this habit. When you say a verse from the poets or from the writers, that ends the discussion. And now I would say, مجلس تمام گشت و به آخر رسید عمر ما همچنان در اول وصل تو ماندیم. That means the meeting is adjourned and my life is the end. This is the end of my life, but we are still in the beginning of thy praise. O beloved Shawqi Effendi, I leave this half the way, but I address him. We are just in the beginning of his praise, and he's no longer with us, although he's always with us. Thank you.
does one thank a hand of the
Thank
cause
you. Thank you very
for
much.
sharing such treasures,
Thank you.
such precious treasures, such personal reminiscences which no one else could share
Thank you.
with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.